When people in different countries, when someone is trying to campaign so that they can be elected to become the country's next leader, they usually make claims like, I will make our country very rich, or that I will ensure that everyone in my country has lots of food and maybe lots of chocolates for children too. But there's one country called Kenya where the current president has set himself a very different goal. He has said that he wants to plant 15 billion trees in the next 10 years. How cool is that? Is that a very different claim you've heard? Have you ever heard any country's leader making a claim like that?
No, not yet at least.
Not yet is a good point, yes. To get to this goal, of 15 billion trees in the next 10 years, guess what he did 2 weeks ago?
Maybe he started the program.
Okay. He surprised the entire country by declaring one day off. All schools were to be closed. All offices, most offices, the essential services were working, but everything else was supposed to be closed so that people could go out and plant trees. Isn't that super cool?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. Especially if you could get a day off from school.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, when I read this news story, I really loved it. It brought a big grin to my face. So I have a question to you. How much do you like this news story on a scale of 1 to 10? We read lots of different news stories. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like this news story?
I would say a solid 9 or 9.
Solid 9. Okay. Is that very close to India having reached the finals in the World Cup? Of course, we didn't win. We're recording this a couple of days after the India versus Australia final in the Cricket World Cup. But, when India reached the finals, we were all very happy in the Cricket World Cup. So compared to that, planting trees, which compares higher to you?
I mean, I am a little biased because I'm from India. So I would say the cricket news was more interesting because I was rooting for my country.
Okay, you were rooting for your country. So it's a 9.5 on 10?
Since everybody was like very excited about the cricket news that India got into the finals, which including me, I think that story would go up 10 out of 10.
10 on 10. Okay. All right. So compared to that, we've got a 9 on 10 story for us to discuss. So hi, this is Sangeeta, the host of this podcast channel called What's New Today. I'm from India, and joining me in this episode is a super curious young co-host.
Okay. Hi, my name is Novizo and I am from Nagaland.
Nagaland, wonderful. Which school do you go to and how old are you?
I go to a school named Charis High Academy, and I am 11 years old.
11 years old? Okay, like all 11 years old. I don't know. I often think of people from Northeast India, that includes Nagaland, as people who are very active sports people. Do you also play football or any other such sports with a lot of interest?
Yeah, yes, I love to play football.
How many hours a day do you all play football?
Usually about 2 or 3 hours a day when I have regular classes. But when I have tests, I would play like an hour at most.
Oh, so you get to play a couple of hours in class, or on other days it's just an hour, is it?
And just an hour is for if I have any tests or if I have lots of homework.
Oh, if you have a lot of homework, it goes down to just an hour. Okay, yeah, that must be bad. But I'm sure y'all are very, very fit. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, I play a lot.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I really, really love to hear that. If there's a lot of homework, playing time goes down to 1 hour. Otherwise, it's 2 to 3 hours a day. That's lovely. Okay. Awesome. Um, but when I also think of a place like Nagaland with a lot of lush green forests, it does sometimes remind me of whatever little we have seen on YouTube of African forests. Is that
Mm.
is that am I right? Is that something that you also is that something that resonates with you also?
Yes, some Naga forests look a lot like those African forests in South Africa.
Wow. Okay. So we don't really need to travel very far. I'm from southern India, so all I should do is to take my next flight to Kohima and see all those beautiful forests. I don't have to go as far as Africa, right? Okay. All right. Now, jumping into today's story, but just a quick primer on Kenya for some of our listeners who may not know much about Kenya. So, Novizo, you're Novizo, right? I'll
Yes,
call you that.
yep, you can call me that.
Okay. So, Novizo, which continent is Kenya in?
Kenya is in Africa.
Wonderful. Secondly, can you, if I were to tell you that a lot of people in Kenya speak English, why do you think that might be true?
Mm, Kenya was um, Kenya was a colonized country a long time ago. I think it was a British colony, so similar to India, even though English is not its original language, the majority of the population know it.
No English. Yeah, absolutely. Kenya was also colonized and they became independent in 1963, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, here's my last question. Kenya has a world famous wildlife sanctuary called the Masai Mara. It's also called the home of the big cats. So, if you had a chance to visit Masai Mara, which animals do you think you'll get to see there?
Since it's called the home of big cats, I would expect to see lions, maybe some leopards, cheetahs. I think maybe. I
That's
would also expect to see different herbivores like wildebeests, those deers, and maybe I could see some water buffaloes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think those wildebeest that come in the movie Lion King is something that does come to our mind when we think of Masai Mara, right? You remember the scene when have you seen Lion King?
Yes, I see Lion King.
Do you remember the scene where the wildebeests almost, or should I say, they do trample Mufasa?
Yes, they do. There's a herd, like
What
traveling herd.
do you want to describe that scene?
Mm, So it's very simple. Like the scene was just Mufasa tried to save Simba. He tried to jump up, but his brother, I forgot his name,
Scar.
Scar, like didn't help him and he fell down and got trampled by the herd.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wildebeest, yeah. Wildebeest are very, very prominent, I think, no? In the Masai Maran forests, just as the African lions are. But yeah, coming back to our topic about planting trees and a national holiday in Kenya. So there are about 50 million people in Kenya, and the goal was to plant 100 million trees. And the president said,
Yes.
okay, let's just get it all done in one day. And I'm declaring tomorrow a national holiday for everybody, and all the students and parents and teachers and a lot of government employees, they were all very excited because if you have to get 100 million trees planted and you are a country of 50 million people, all you've got to do is to plant.
Two trees.
Go ahead. Yes. And the Kenyan government also made all these seedlings and saplings for many of these trees available for free in the various nurseries around the country.
Mm.
So, did you see any videos of those Kenyans trying to plant trees when you were researching this
Yes, I
topic?
have. Yeah, when I was researching this topic, I have seen a few videos about of Kenyan people planting trees. I watched a video where a Kenyan man and a few other people were planting lots of trees, even though they had only planted like 2 trees per person to meet the requirement. They still planted over 10, 20 trees.
Wow. Okay. Did you also see that it was pouring in many parts of the country? So people didn't even mind the rains. They were all very excited to plant trees. And so I think some of them were wearing raincoats. Some didn't even bother. They were very happy to get wet because they really wanted to do something or do their little bit to
Mm.
ensure that they had a greener country. Oh, okay, why is it that Kenya is doing this and you don't really see most of the other countries declaring national holidays to plant trees?
Well, Kenya is a country that has been very severely affected by deforestation. Many of their forests have been cut down, and only about 7% of their land is covered in forest now. Kenya also like suffers from pollution, and the trees would really help. Like the trees will really help out in clearing the air and making the air fresh. Kenya also is experiencing habitat loss, and uh, animals are going. Lots of the animals are getting endangered due to habitat loss, and also these trees. These trees will be very good for the some of the people. As some of the people, their whole career like revolves around living with trees, like gardeners, wood cutters, and all the others. So it's very important for Kenya.
Yeah, that's true, especially that thing you said about habitat loss for a lot of creatures. So hopefully, I know it takes a few years, if not a few decades, for several of these saplings to grow into giant trees. But hopefully people and maybe lions and cheetahs will all find shelter under this. And also, there's one more reason where I think Kenya has been pressed towards taking this decision. They've had a very long spell of a drought, a really, really long spell. Like, I think a drought like situation has existed there for a couple of decades almost. So now they have very little choice but to do whatever they can to ensure that they get enough rain. And if it does fall, that the ground is able to retain that water. In fact, Kenya used to have at one point some of these very rich forests called, I think, montane forests is the word they use. So these giant trees, they're so good at retaining the water, after it has rained. And whenever there is a dry spell, like a long drought, these trees are able to slowly release that water into the ground. So people can get groundwater even during an extended drought. So they want to bring back those kind of trees also. I really love this
Oh,
news story. When I was researching, or every time I'm trying to look for a new topic that we want to talk about on What's New Today. Of course, we do love topics like India reaching the finals or Virat Kohli breaking a record for the largest number of ODI centuries. But I love these kind of positive topics also, where children get a national holiday to go plant trees.
yes.
Did you find it interesting? Yep.
I
Okay.
found it very interesting.
Awesome. All right. So before we wrap up, I've got one riddle for Novizo, and this
Oh,
riddle is based on an African proverb. So you want to try you can try and guess what I'm going to talk about. Okay.
okay,
Um. Yeah. You have to guess who am I? You know what I'm talking about. I have a
okay.
house. I have a house full of milk and crunchy food inside, and the husk is all over my shell. I'm a fruit growing in tall trees in Africa and in Asia. Who am I?
Hmm. Can you say that again?
Yeah, sure, I can repeat it. I have a house full of milk and crunchy food inside me, and I have husk all over my shell. I'm a fruit growing in a tall tree in Africa and Asia.
Ah, okay, I got it. I think it's a coconut.
Correct. It is a coconut. Yes.
Yes.
I've got one more. Do you want to try?
Okay, okay. No
All right.
problem.
Okay.
Okay.
This is also based on an African proverb. I am a huge tree, but you will see my fruits only in the night. Who am I?
Hmm. A huge tree. I don't know.
No, okay, I'll
This
give
one.
you a hint. I'll give you a hint. So, this is
Okay.
not literally a tree. Okay. This is something that appears in nature. So, when they're saying you'll see my fruits only in the night, they're referring to something that you can see if you look up in the night.
Stars, maybe?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, what can be the tree?
Wow. Hmm. What can be the tree? The sky?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is how, so several of these African proverbs are very poetical. When they describe the sky and the stars, they call it a tree with the fruits that can be seen in the night. It's a very interesting. I mean, I really love when I read all these quaint little proverbs in different parts of the world. All right. So, Novizo, before we wrap up every episode, we have two
yes.
sections. One other section is a
Okay.
quiz section.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
where I'll ask you three questions based on what we've just discussed. So the quiz section is not really for you and me, it's for our listeners to see if
mm,
they were paying attention to what you and I were talking about. Shall we give it a shot?
okay.
Yep. Okay. I've got three questions based on what we've just discussed. All right. Question number one. Kenya was a colony earlier at some point in time. So which country used to rule Kenya?
The British.
The British. Yes, correct. Question number two. Kenya's rulers recently declared a national holiday, a surprise national holiday. What was it for?
It was for planting trees.
Yes. Question number three. On the day that everybody had a national holiday and they were all going out to plant trees, how would you describe the weather on that day?
It was very rainy.
It was raining. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Novizo. This was one of my very, very happy topics that I got to chat about with you. And I'm very happy that I got to chat with someone who lives in a place amidst tall trees and lush green forests, just the way I imagine Kenya to be. So I hope you enjoyed chatting about this.
Yes, I enjoyed chatting with you very much.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Before we wrap up this episode, I have a small request from you. Is there any other episode in What's New Today that you really enjoyed and you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Hmm. Uh, I I'm not sure, but I have lots of episodes that I like.
Okay, if there had to be top one or two,
Maybe the ones about animals.
which one?
Mm, island rule one
They were talking about the island effect.
with the island effect because it's very like interesting about how big animals become small and small animals become big.
When they move to an island. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very interesting idea, right? Okay. Thank you so much, Novizo. For all our listeners who may not be aware, we're also, so very recently, we also produced a podcast series on wildlife conservation in India, where we've discussed stories about how India has managed to save its lions, its tigers, it's trying to bring back and save its cheetahs, and it's done a brilliant job in saving rhinos, which you can find which you can find a lot of in forests not very far from where Novizo lives. So, if you like wildlife, you can also listen to this 9-part episode series on wildlife. I'm leaving a link to the Island Effect episode that Novizo likes in the show notes below. I'm also leaving a link to the entire wildlife podcast series in the show notes below. New episodes on What's New Today come out every Monday and Friday.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.